Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. We're here to help transform relationships to love and to life. All questions can be asked, and I will do my best to give an answer or guidance as to how we can really unravel all these storylines that we create in our life. So, I have a whole bunch of questions that were pre submitted. I have a few people that I see are on live. Feel free to write in the chat, whether you're on YouTube live or you're here with me on Zoom in the link. If you're here in Zoom, you can actually raise your hand and ask a question. So if you're listening to replay, please, by all means, if you have a question, put it in the notes section, the messenger section, and I will be sure to answer it next week. So I'm super happy you're all here. Welcome to the show. And I do see some live callers. So if you have a question, just jump right in. If not, I will go to some of the pre-submitted questions. Any live callers yet? Okay, let me.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Beck.
Hi.
Hello. I have a question if I can ask.
Sure.
So thank you for doing this. First of all, this is a great show, and it has been really empowering my life. And since I talked to you last time, I tried to categorize my feelings, and I'm kind of like trying to embrace who I am.
Mhm.
But then I started to feel like, because I notice things differently now, I get a little bit confused to, I don't know how to say this, but in a way that maybe I am the narcissistic one. I started feeling like, am I being too critical of other people by even categorizing their behaviors and things? And then in a way, I understand now that people are a reflection of me. So then I started to kind of getting confused if I am the narcissistic one. And sometimes I just don't know the answer.
Well, first of all, I want to honor something. I'll tell you that if you are a narcissist, you wouldn't be asking the question, am I a narcissist? Because narcissists don't even think that they're narcissists. So you're definitely not a narcissist. I can confirm that because you're asking that. But what I'm hearing you say is actually something a little bit different. I'm hearing you say that you're letting your mind come in with a lot of judgments of other people. So that's a very,
Right.
because that means that you actually have awareness. Narcissists don't have awareness about themselves in relationship to others and how they're making other people feel. So the fact that you're asking the question and that you're also bringing this topic forward of like, hey, how am I impacting my relationships with other people based on what I'm thinking about them or doing with them, that's a really heartfelt place. And sometimes I don't like the questions and the thoughts and things that come in my mind about people either. But as you know, you are the creator of all those thoughts. So I think the fact that you're reflecting on them is really, really good. And then you can start to make changes, right? Like why? Because you've already kind of answered your question in some ways, because the reality is, as you said, is that we ask people in our external world to reflect things to us. So
Right.
some people that are coming in and giving you some things that are like and then you're making a judgment, and then there is an element of that judgment that is about yourself, right? And sometimes, and a lot of those things, most of those things aren't true either, right? It's just something coming up for us to really feel into and say, what is it about myself that I want to change? And I think that's what you're asking actually right now, is you're asking those really good, juicy questions of like, what is it about myself I want to change?
Yes, I guess so, because I guess most of us, we try to be the best that we could be. So then maybe we just don't know how we could make ourselves better. I guess we could, but I just don't know how. And sometimes well, reading your book kind of like, yes, so I have to move on when I shouldn't be attached to one thing. I should embrace it and I should move on. But moving on, so I don't even know when is a good time to move on or when is a good time to work on it. And then, like you said, I just don't know how to make myself better because
Well,
I'm trying my best right now.
you are. And the question that you just asked about when is it time to move on? Well, I always think it's time to move on when the other person isn't willing to have any deeper internal looks at themselves, right? So if we're doing the work,
Okay.
if I'm in a friendship with you and I say, hey,
Mhm.
here's what's happening for me. Here's how I'm feeling. Here, I want to work through this. If I'm saying that to you, then this relationship is worth staying in it. But if that person
Oh, I
is
see. Okay.
not interested in any aspect of themselves, and then it's just you doing the work, you always trying to figure out, like, what did I do? What did I do? Which is a great thing to do. But if the other person isn't
Right.
willing to do that too, it's time to move on, right? And sometimes that's so hard because
Yes.
we, as more people sometimes that are interested in the spiritual journey, interested in making
Mhm.
interested in growing, we want to help the other person
Right.
grow. And that's where the hooks come in.
Right.
That's where we get
Oh,
stuck and
yeah.
we get pulled deep into storylines all the time. And
Right.
especially with the people that we love, the people that we love the most, we get stuck in these storylines with, right? And sometimes that's when we go, time to let them go because they're not interested in doing their inner work.
Right.
We see what their inner
Yes.
work is and we want to help and we want them to help
Hmm.
us.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yes, no, this is a great insight. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, great. All right, we'll go on to the next submitted question, and then if you want to come back online, you can ask as many questions as you'd like as we're here. Okay, so the next question is, my daughter hasn't spoken to me in over 10 years. I've tried to contact her several times, and she always says she is not interested in having a relationship with me. Is there anything I can do to rebuild the relationship? And I think that this can probably go across lots of different relationships. It doesn't just have to be a daughter, but because it is a daughter, it always pulls on the heartstrings so much more because, they're people in our lives that we've given birth to. So we know by virtue of the fact that it's a daughter, that there is a really big, strong soul contract there. There is a reason why the two of you came into this lifetime together to play out some roles that sometimes are hurtful and sometimes are difficult for our awakening and our ascension. So the question I think is always, well, kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, actually, the previous caller's question of when is it time to let go, right? Because sometimes we just hang on, hoping, when it's about letting go of the person and letting them go on their own journey, because there may not be anything more you can do for that daughter, for that person. Chances are, based on what I'm kind of feeling into with this question, you've done a lot. You've reached out, you've tried to communicate. Maybe you haven't communicated in the perfect way. Maybe you haven't said the perfect things. Maybe there's too much water under the bridge for the other person. But you can't keep holding yourself down if the other person isn't willing to come up at all, right? So if this person is blocking you, energetically or literally on phones and social media or whatever, then, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening for you, but if that's the case for anyone, then we really need to let these people go because they're on their journey and they're doing what they need to do for them in their minds, thinking to protect themselves. You may have all the best intentions of the world. You may be one of the most enlightened people in the world, but a lot of times these loved ones, they do not want to be in our light. They don't want that because when we shine the light, it means that they have to look at their stuff. And so just by virtue of us being people who want to do the work and help others do the work, that can be off-putting right there. It's off-putting to a lot of people. Another example that comes to mind, which is a little bit different, because right now we're talking about more spiritual evolution and ascension. But you know how sometimes when you're not in a great mood, I'm just saying, like in general, and you walk into a room, maybe in your office or something, and there's somebody that is just so flippin' happy, and all they want to do is just like be optimistic and positive, and you're like, ah, and you're mad at yourself that you can't even just jump into their energy and just be happy. Well, sometimes that's what happens, right? There's sort of this push pull, and again, it's always like just going deep within. Well, what is it within me that needs to come out and actually be released as a result of this person? And so sometimes when the other person's super happy, and I'm saying that in the context of sometimes when we're shining the light really bright, it's hard for people who don't have their light shining as bright, because they're feeling very exposed and they're not ready to go there. And that's a tough place, but we do have to just let them be on their journey. And I know how hard that is with a daughter, because you know that they're growing and changing, and I don't know what age this daughter is, but um I believe that you can still connect with her in another dimension. And what I mean by that is, on a soul level, I think the best thing you can do is send love and light to that individual. Tell them energetically that you love them. Share with them, your heartfelt feelings, on an energetic level. Don't reach out anymore. If they've asked you to stop, then you need to honor that request, that you want to stop reaching out, stop connecting. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to stop with different dimensions and realms and speaking to their higher self, but most importantly, getting the lessons for yourself. So hopefully that answers that question. If not, feel free to add more in the notes section below and I can clarify next week. Or if you're online now, I can clarify if you give me a little bit more insight into the notes section. All right, so let's go on to the next question. Unless one of our live callers has a question, you're more than welcome to jump in. If there's anybody else that wants to jump in, or I'll go to the pre-submitted. Okay, so the next question is, my mother has crossed to the other side and I wish I could contact her. Any recommendations? Well, actually, I have a lot of recommendations on this one, because we know that we are eternal souls and that we never actually die. Our physical body, our meat suits, yes, they die sometimes in sudden cases, and sometimes it takes us a long time to choose to leave this body consciously. But we are always in connection with others on the other side. They are always available to us. Now, I recognize that many of us may not have instant access to other souls on the other side. So there's a lot of resources and a lot of people that can help us make those connections. I do have several people listed in my Awakening and Healing Handbook that you can find on bethbell.me. So if any of those people resonate for you to reach out to, you can certainly reach out to those people that can be in direct contact. I have done a lot of channeling of others on the other side. It's not something that I do on an ongoing basis, but I do believe that we can all tune in to the other dimensions. So what I would recommend for you is that you get into a quiet space, find, if you have an altar or a candle, even an area, and maybe something of your mom's that means a lot to you. Maybe it's a ring, or it's just a coffee cup that she used, or something that brings her energy and her vibration in. And it's really about sitting quietly and just connecting in. And if you don't feel like you're getting anything from your mother as you're doing this, that's okay. You don't have to beat yourself up for your ability to feel like you're connecting or not. I want to really inspire you to say that you are connecting no matter what, because as soon as you put that intention out there, you are connecting into your mother's spirit, or anyone that's crossed over on the other side. So set the little sacred ceremonial space as best you can. Maybe it's just a flower that you bring, and really just tune in, close your eyes, breathe deep, and start thinking about that person. When you allow them some time to come to you, not that they need time, but I think we need time to just quiet our minds, ask some questions. A lot of times, if I feel like I'm not actually tuning in and like hearing something from my loved one or the person that I'm reaching out to on the other side, I'll often journal, and I'll just write a question and just ask the question that I'd like to ask the person. And here's the real catch to this, is you want to just let your pencil write the answer. So it's not coming from your mind, it's coming from your pencil. It's coming from that place where you just remote write, and you'll be surprised at what comes through. It's mostly about quieting the mind, but also putting the intention out there that you want to be in connection with that person. And if nothing else, you will feel the love inside your heart with that other person. So please know that we are always eternal souls, and we actually never die, which is kind of a crazy thing to know, that we're just running in these soul circles, coming back into new meat suits and finding each other yet again, whether it's our mothers, our fathers, our lovers, our sisters, and our brothers. So hopefully that's helpful. If not, again, give me some messages in the notes below, and I'm happy to answer yet today or next week if you're not on with us live. So any other live callers want to jump in and ask a question? No, not yet. Okay. Okay, so here's another question that was pre-submitted. I met someone who lives on the other side of the US, and we've been texting all the time. How do I know if he likes me in a romantic way versus just friends? Well, okay, I have to say the obvious thing first, which is just ask, right? But I know how that can be difficult sometimes. But if you're still too scared to just ask, then what I would do is I would feel into this, and I would really get a feeling for what is that interaction that you're having with that person, and share some of your feelings with the person that leads into these kinds of conversations. I don't think they need to be difficult conversations, but sometimes anything that's emotional or makes us feel vulnerable, it can be really challenging to ask those questions. But I think that's the beauty of it, is that the earlier we can speak our truth, the earlier we can ask these questions, the more we can learn about ourselves and about the other person, and about the relationship that we have with them, and how comfortable do they make us feel in asking these more vulnerable questions. So hopefully that answers the question that was asked. Okay, I see we've got some other live callers. So all right, Natalie. All right, why don't you just jump on and ask your question if you're muted. Nope, it looks like you're not muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome.
Oh, I didn't know. I've never done this before, so thanks for taking my call.
Yeah. You have a question?
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question it's actually kind of piggybacking on the last one.
Okay.
I do my meditations very often, and I feel very connected to spirit, but how do I connect with my specific spirit guides
Well, I
to
love
know
that.
exactly who they are?
Yeah, I love that question. And what I do, and I think that there's many different ways that we can go about doing this, but what I do is I sit and I have a very intentional, well, there's two different ways that I do it. Sometimes I want to be working in the lower vibrational realms, and sometimes I want to be going to like the more terrestrial realms, and sometimes I want to be going to the more celestial realms. And so for me, now I'm gonna give this answer, and then I'm gonna come back, because I don't think what I'm gonna say next answers your question exactly. But what I do is I ask my spirit animals to show up, and based on whether I want to go down or I want to go up, my spirit animals show up, and I could describe them to you, but I think for purposes of this, I'm going to hold off for a second and just say that if you can get your spirit animal to come to you, just literally sit with the intention of, I want to go to the underworlds or I want to go to the celestial worlds, and ask your spirit animal to come. For me, that's been really helpful because there's something about the spirit animal that makes me feel maybe a little bit in my inner child, and sometimes I'm not really a big inner child fan, but because it's like, it's still me, it's just another dimension of myself, but it brings that innocence and that curiosity. So when I ask my spirit animal to show up, I feel like there's a lot more of a playfulness about it. And then I can, I can just literally jump on with them and then have them take me to my guides. So for me, that works the best because it keeps me in that curiosity. It keeps me in the curiosity of what is it that I'm going to see. And then I go to my other guides. There's also something that's coming to mind that I'm going to share in the description below after this call, that is an inner guide meditation, and it's similar, that can really walk you through the details of how to go into this and what to look for in the guides as well. Because as we go into other dimensions, sometimes people show up and they're like, yeah, I'm your guide, and you're like, okay, how do I know for sure you're my guide, or you're just another entity out there like wanting to have fun with me? And we want to really tap into who our guides are. So there's some very specific things that we can do, but mostly to see who resonates with us. And I'm going like this because I mean like more my third chakra, right? Where we just kind of have that knowingness where we go, okay, I know. And asking for the light, right? Asking for the light in another person, similar to what we do, honestly. People who are more awake and aware, when we walk around and we meet people, we're unknowingly, in many cases, looking to see about their light, right? That's their vibration, their level of vibration. How do I feel about this person? Like, do they look dark? Do they look, it's not about their physical looks, it's about their energetics. And so I use that on the other dimensions as well, to see like, oh, okay, what's your are you light filled? Are you coming from the dark? Right? Especially when we're going into the underworlds, we want to just know who we're speaking with. So I know I gave a little bit more on that than probably what you were asking for, which is just really like, hey, how do I get in and get to my guides? But like I said, for me, it works best to use my spirit animals, because I just feel like I get into a real place of innocence and I feel supported. I don't feel like I'm just alone going into the other dimensions. And there's a lot more, camaraderie and intuition that seems to happen for me when I access that. But does that help at all, or was I too far off of your question?
Heck yes, no, that helped. That was really helpful. But how do you connect to your spirit animal? How do you know what your spirit animal is, I should say?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And the way that I found my spirit animal was,
I have different moments when I feel connected to different spirit animals, but I don't know if I have one specifically.
I hear you. And I believe that when the time is right, it will happen. But it's about intention. And I know you know this, but it's intention and quieting the mind and finding that space where you can just ask for them to come to you. It's, for me, what happens is I guess now that I know my spirit animals, it's a lot easier for me to see them. So for the question you're asking, like, how do I get to them? I close my eyes. The way that I found them is I close my eyes and I ask them to show themselves to me. And sometimes that can be frustrating. It might take more than one sitting, right? It might take a couple. And my spirit guide has actually changed over time. So I don't believe that we have to only have one spirit guide. You may notice that there's other animals that are, because there's two different animal spirit guides. There's ones that are in the other realms that don't exist here on planet Earth. And then there's other animals that do exist here on planet Earth. And so you might already have an affinity to a hawk, or maybe you see owls all the time, or maybe something about bunnies that you really love, or you had bunnies, so there can be things here in this dimension that are already the clues for you. So the two different guides are the ones that exist physically here, like a spirit animal here, or ones that are more multidimensional, and they may take on many different characteristics that aren't here. So like another example that comes to mind to share is, unicorns. Like, that's where unicorns come from, right? There are a lot of people's genuine spirit guide in other dimensions, but it's not an animal that physically exists here, but we think about them as a figment of our imagination, right? But they are definite guides for a lot of people. And of course, then they just showed that there's a lot of beautiful magic that can happen when we believe, that anything is possible. So I would just recommend sitting quietly and tapping into other animals that you see, here on the earth, and see what shows up for you. They'll show up. Sometimes they show you just like their eyes. My first spirit guide was a black panther. And the first thing I saw was his bright green eyes. And that's what really tuned me in. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I know what you are. And then he started to show me more of himself. And yeah, and then when my guide switched to a totally different animal, yeah, that was a beautiful experience too. It was just like that one happened to just show up, and there was lots of characteristics that he immediately showed me, and then I just knew. And then I was like, wait, I didn't know you guys were passing me off on on animal guides, but it can happen because sometimes we expand and we need other guides. So I think my purpose of saying that is don't get stuck that it's like one guide or that has to remain one guide, but usually we have someone that's with us for a long period of time. So hopefully that's helpful. And I have a feeling that you have an animal. I don't know. I just feel like there's an animal that you already really have an affinity to in the earth plane. So maybe that's something to tune into, is someone, something that's already really resonating for you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I actually, on my altar, I have hawk feathers
There you
that
go.
I've received. And then yesterday, um, my son knows I like animals and birds, and there was actually a crow or a raven's feather that was like stuck in a very peculiar place. And I was like, how did this get here? And so it's like on my altar now also. So I'm definitely going to connect with those and do a meditation.
Yeah, I
So
love
thank
that.
you for the advice.
Yeah, you're welcome. And a lot of times when I'm answering a question, I'm just channeling. Did I say hawk to you earlier? What did I say? What kind of bird did I?
Yeah, you said hawk and owl and maybe a bunny, but right when you said hawk, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, no, so that's great. So I kind of felt like you had some affinity to something. So I get that. And I also just love to just go into Google and say spiritual significance of hawk, right? And see what it has to say. And then if that resonates with you, if you go, yes, this, then that a hawk is your spirit animal. And then when you're in the meditation, ask the hawk to show up, and it's so fun, it's so magical, because they just show up, and then you never know, you're probably going to jump on, I'm making it up, I don't know what's going to happen for you, but you're probably going to jump on the back of the hawk and hang on and fly away, and the hawk will take you to your guides, right? The hawk will take you there. And that's also what I love about it is, and I learned so much from my dog Lily, because she's a she's a wild feral Bali dog, and so she's really smart, and she leads me to information and to things because she's feeling, she's using her intuition, she's using her body, she's using how things make her feel to get places. And that's what our spirit guides do, is help us through that, navigate that a lot easier. So I'll be interested to see if you're interested in sharing anything more on a future show, if anything happens for you. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I'm really excited to do a meditation now.
Yeah,
So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Beth. I really love your work.
Yeah, thank you. And everyone's welcome to ask as many questions as they want. As I said, I have some pre-questions here, but any other callers that are live that want to jump in? Okay, so let's keep going then. I am an emotional mess and can't seem to pull it together. Some days I don't even know why I'm so upset. How can I shift my emotions? Well, there's a lot of different things we can do, but I have to say that, it's a time right now where there's so much happening energetically with the planets, whether it's Mercury in retrograde, which it isn't right at this moment, or it's just all the shifts that are happening in humanity. If you're feeling a mess, I know this is going to sound weird, but I would say that's a good thing. Make it a good thing. Make it a good thing, because it means that you have pain bodies within you that are actually coming to the surface. And we want to get rid of those pain bodies, which is just lower vibrational energy that's stuck, right? So it's always about raising our vibration. We know when we're happy, we feel lighter, we feel happy, we feel like it's easy to navigate. When we feel depressed or we feel suppressed, it's like walking through quicksand, right? So when you have those upset days, when you feel like it's chaotic, I get it. It happens to all of us, sometimes more times than others, but just know that you can easily feel in, welcome the emotions. Well, maybe it's not always easy, but welcome the emotions and really ask the question, what is it that I am feeling this for? What is it that needs to be released? What do I want to let go of? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? So sometimes it's some of the basics, but don't ignore it. Don't let that energy get shoved back down. Don't let yourself feel like you can't express yourself, right? Don't feel like you have to hold back the tears. I mean, if you're at work and it's not appropriate at that time, that's fine, but go home and bring that feeling back up and cry it out. The more you can cry this stuff out, the more you can actually release it and have it be gone for good, right? That we're actually expanding, raising our vibration and staying in other states of bliss and happiness in life. And so that's really what our job is here, right? If you've read my book, Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics, you know that my spiritual healer always says that our only goal is to be the happiest mother effers on earth, which is not really my language, but I love that he says it because we don't expect spiritual people to be injecting that in there where we're talking about, really just being happy, right? So that's what we're here for. All right. Any other live callers have any questions? If not, we'll keep going. Okay. So here's another one. My husband doesn't want to talk with me, or at least he doesn't want me to talk with him. That makes it difficult to work on things if we're not communicating. How can I get him to listen to me? Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is say less. If he doesn't want to hear you talk, it might be because you're talking too much. It might be because you have too much to say. It might be because you've held on to a lot of thoughts and feelings and emotions for too long, and now you just want to get it all out. We have to honor that men and women, our masculine, our feminine, we communicate differently. We have different communication styles. And generally speaking, I'm not saying this is everyone, but generally speaking, men like things short and simple. Women like to go to the chicken farm and back, and we have lots of emotion and shades of gray, and we want to talk it out and talk it through. There is nothing wrong with either approach. We just need to honor the person that's in front of us might have a different way of communicating than we do, and it's important to honor that. So if your husband doesn't want to talk to you, you're probably saying too much, so say less. Use your discernment. What's really something I need to talk about with my husband? And then what are some things that maybe I can just talk out or talk through with my girlfriends, right? Or my other friends. Not to say that you want to talk about things, or talk behind your partner's back. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying there's sometimes it's our, and again, I'm going to generalize and say women like to have more discussion about emotions and men don't. And so choose where you're going to express what. It doesn't have to be arduous. It just be clear when you're talking to your man, share your feelings, share your vulnerabilities. And if you can, ask for what you need very specifically, because men oftentimes, again, generally speaking, want to find a solution for their women. So help them out and tell them, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I feel I need to talk about. And here's what I hope you can help me with, right? And then they can go, okay, she's going to talk about this and I don't have to find a solution for that. And then she's going to tell me what she needs, right? So sometimes it's like just getting really clear communication and honoring their communication style. And then when the roles are reversed and your husband needs to talk to you, then you can ask him, hey, honey, here's how I communicate. Can you help out? And can you do this? It might be like, can you tell me a little bit more about how you feel so that I'm not trying to guess, right? Like I need to understand the feeling component of this. So it's really just about opening those lines of communication and wanting to speak from the way that the other person needs to hear the messages. And I know with marriage, sometimes the longer we're married, the deeper these ruts get about the challenges with communication. But you can do it. You can do it. Open it up, tell them what you need, be clear, be concise. And if that doesn't help, come on to next week's show, ask more questions. You can do it in the pre-submit or in the links in the comments below. Okay, on to the next question. I've done psychedelics and feel like I've been shown so much about oneness. However, now that I've been integrating for a few months since my last journey, I feel confused about my mind chatter. Well, this is a great question, and it's one of my real hot buttons hot topics, because I've said so many times, psychedelics are not here to enlighten you. They do awaken us and they do show us another way, a way that is not with all the confines of our mind. So that is the beauty of psychedelics. They show us that North Star and they show us how we can not be caught up in the storylines, but we have to do the integration work. And that's why in this question, I feel confused about my mind chatter. We have to keep working on that mind chatter. It's a tough one, but when we're reprogramming ourselves and we're releasing these ideas that we have about life and how life works or doesn't work, that's when we really need to just be present with what is my mind saying. What do I want to stop? Oh, I hear this thought. Let me bring in a different thought. Now, there's something I want to make really clear here, that if it's an emotion, as we just talked about earlier, we do want to feel the emotions, clear the emotions and bring them out. But when we're in one of those circuitous loops where we just have a thought and then we just want to feel crappy about it, have more thoughts, feel crappy, have more thoughts, feel crappy, that doesn't work. You've got to take the bull by the horns and say, my soul is going to drive. Ego is going to be in the back seat, and I am going to shift the narrative around what my mind is telling me. I know this all too well. It happens to me a lot as well. I have to really hone in and say, wait, I have to stop this narrative and stop the routines that bring in that narrative. That's another really key aspect here. If you don't stop what's happening in your external world, whether it's, listening to a song that reminds you of something or going to a certain place that reminds you of something, you got to shift all of that up. You can't stay doing the same thing day after day and expect anything else to shift. So that's really important when it comes to integration of psychedelic journeys, is that you can't come back and do the same thing. Otherwise, you just reprogram the mind. And that's where you start to feel a little bit more confusion and chatter. And then before you know it, you're right back to where you were. Well, not right back, because the thing is that you know the difference now, right? Psychedelics or even just plain meditation have shown you a new idea, a new way of thinking, and you can't ignore that now you know a different way. So that's also kind of that rub that I think happens a lot of times with psychedelics, is that we get so clear, we get such great information, and it's so empowering. And then we got to come back and manage that good old mind, right? That is living here now as a human, mind, body, soul, right? That's where we want to have it all integrated. We want to be embodied. We want to be here now and stay in the present moment. And that's also a way to quiet that mind chatter, is be present, be here, listen to our higher self, not to the mind, which is, those little voices I like to say on the shoulder, right? Because we think about it kind of like that, like as though we're listening, to these other ideas about ourselves that are not true. Hopefully that helps. If not, give me some information in the in the notes in the discussion below, and we'll answer more next week. Or if you're on live with us now, please ask some clarifying questions and I'm happy to help. All right, so anyone else on the live? Let me just check the chat. All right, I'll go over to YouTube in just a minute, just in case I've got some callers there. Okay, or some live chats there. Here's the next one. I've recently broken up with my boyfriend. I thought we were both okay with the breakup, even though it was sad. Now he's texting me things that are not very nice and it's hurtful. Any idea why he may have shifted and what I can do about it? Well, recently broke up. Sad, texting. Okay. So in relationships, in breakups, when, generally speaking, when one person wants to do the inner work and the other one doesn't want to do the inner work, it's so interesting how these themes, because we just answered a bit of this question earlier. What they do is they make us look bad, saying bad things, because they don't want to go inward. If they were willing to go inward, they wouldn't write bad things, and you probably wouldn't be broken up because they'd be willing to do the work together. And so when people are saying these mean things, they're saying them because they're hurt, because they don't have the toolbox to help themselves. They don't have the emotional intelligence, perhaps, to really dig into what's going on. And so they're going to come after us. So yeah, they're going to say mean things. And that's where you have to let stuff roll off your back. You can't go into those storylines, because the only thing you can do is your own work. The only thing you can do is go within and ask the question, what is it that's here for me? And what do I need to change about myself to stop attracting this type of person, this type of response, this type of outburst? Like, what is it? Why am I asking this person? Chances are it's a really deep wound. It's a very deep wound. Or it could just be that it's just something else that you need to hear to keep going, to see exactly where they are and their ascension process or lack thereof. So feel into that. But most of the times when someone's saying mean things, they're just trying to dump their crap on you. And because you're probably an empath and a very compassionate, loving person, I'm guessing, sometimes it's easy for people to dump on us, right? Don't let them, just let it go, give them back. Family constellation work, we did this work all the time. And I loved it because oftentimes we were in a big group, and oftentimes the facilitator would give us like these seat cushions, these pillows, and we would use the pillows to give back to the person that was projecting onto us whatever the issue was, right? So if they're texting you something mean, taking whatever those words are, put it in a pillow, like in your mind, put all of this into a pillow energetically, and then do the visualization of giving it back to the person, because you don't need it. And the more you feel into and feed into the ideas of what they're saying about you, it doesn't help you. It only drains you. So give it back to them. You don't need it. And eventually they'll go and find someone else that wants to play those games and say all those mean things. And yeah, so the only way to stop the pain and stop the hurt is to really just go into your lessons, your love for yourself, and not go into the storylines. And energetically, most of the times what we need to do is just cut them off if they're at that place of trying to throw stuff at us. So hopefully that helps. If not, again, put it in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer more on that question. All right, we're coming down to the end. I don't know if there's any other questions here. I'm going to take a quick look over at YouTube and see if we've got any other questions coming in there. I don't think I see any there. All right, so I'm going to go to this one last question and then I think we will adjourn for today. Oh, this is a good one. Why does the ascension journey have to feel so challenging? Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. Why does it? Why does the ascension have to be so challenging? I guess because we came in here, from our soul contracts, jumped into these human bodies, which we chose, the people we chose, the souls that we're running with, we chose. And so if it feels challenging, it's because you set it up that way. And a lot of times, human nature is that things have to get challenging before it gets our attention. And so, really, all we need to do is just let that shit go. Let it go. I know it's always easier said than done, but it doesn't have to be. So let it go. Whatever's troubling you, whatever feels so heavy, whether it's a family member, a partner, a work situation, whatever it is, let it go and trust source, God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call source energy, the creator, the co-creator with us of all things. Let it go to them. Let it go to the energies that be. Mother Nature is our most incredible teacher for this, our guru, although I don't believe in gurus per se. Watch a flower. Watch how a flower so effortlessly blooms and provides such incredible beauty. And that's the human being part that we're all called to get back to, is that being, not that doing. Yes, doing comes in time. And yes, we do a lot of things. And yes, we get a lot of things done. But it's about being in the being part so that we can be in the soul's plan to allow everything to align for ourselves. So I think that's a great note to end the show on. If I've missed any of your questions, please alert me in the notes below. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. You'll get all the notifications when we go live next time. I so appreciate your time today. Thank you for calling in live. Thank you for submitting in advance. I can't wait to see what you guys have for next week and all the discussions that we get into. So I wish you the most incredible week. Namaste.